Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content, from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm David Duarte, your host for Culture Before Content, and we're here with some live guests today from Sweetwater. And just as I mentioned, here we are at the Sweetwater Director Academy at the Bands of America Summer Camp presented by Yamaha. Well, let me introduce my guest today. We've got Rick Drewry, who is the school relationship manager for Sweetwater, and I'll let him take a moment to introduce himself and tell us what that means. Please welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, it's awesome to be with you guys. You know, I've in some capacity I've been affiliated with the Director Symposium for 12, 13 years at this point, from a marching member at the Cavaliers to now faculty with it. So it's awesome. But yeah, I'm a school relationship manager for Sweetwater, and it's essentially an ed rep service position, and I service the Great Plains territory of the United States. So Minnesota all the way out to Montana, and then Iowa and Nebraska, and it's super awesome. You get to meet lots
that's a
of
lot
people.
of land.
A lot of land. Not a lot of people, but a lot of land. Yes.
Well, I we're going to talk a little bit about what Sweetwater, and I know one of the things that I've been talking about is the modernization that Sweetwater's into, and I thought we could talk about, the difference between the city and the rural, kind of like that whole lot of land. How is Sweetwater helping that lot of land?
Well, I was a band director in Dallas-Fort Worth before my position with the company. And so, one of the things that we brainstorm as a team is about how do we bring that big city amenity to the rural parts of the country. And, we can talk more about this, but the appeals that we've made to music educator associations in these states, the conversations that we have with educators, we're really creating a meaningful difference in how rural communities can have the same amenities as big cities.
So one of those amenities I learned today, and I love talking about this stuff, is like school. Do you have a school rental system that's going? Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe?
Sure. Well, with regards to my particular territory and how that equity is serviced, it's in our protection plan and how we service repairs. And pretty much in all parts of my territory, within 2 or 3 days, I can service a repair completely, fully, including weekends, because we're a FedEx hub. So it's pretty game-changing for these communities that have to wait, week, 2 weeks, if not even longer, for some road rep rotation to come out and service a repair. We can get you a Yamaha 222 flute sent to your band hall or your own personal home, as long as it's a working address, in, again, 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, I have been finding that's my homework for tonight. I'm gonna go look it all up tonight. I learned about the service, but I never really put some thought to it. And so just having these conversations has been super helpful. And what has the online experience done for Sweetwater, or what do you feel it could do or should do, is what I'm thinking.
Well, so let's take, for example, a very recent client that we've kind of signed on into Sweetwater is we actually serve the Omaha Nation of Nebraska, the complete Omaha Nation, the whole tribal community school. They're wanting to start up a band program, and there is it is a food desert. It is low socioeconomic, and we're able to work with them and they want to start a band program, and the fact that we're able to service that community has been a game changer for them. And just the amount of conversations that we have with people that just are just miles away, 70, 80 plus miles away, hours plus, people that are closer to Canada than their own local music store, so that ability to be able to provide that sort of service to them has been super game changer, with just the immediacy and the amount of time, rehearsal time that these kids can have in the band hall, and the instruments are not out being serviced somewhere, outside of the realm of their communities.
So thinking of these band directors, so if someone is now going, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was available, how would they go find this information? Is on the website? Is this what,
Yeah. Well, so what we want to do, and it is on the website, but what we want to do as a school relationship team is work one-on-one with the band director. We know that band directors have preferences. We know that there are brands. We know that there are accessories. We know that every program has its own individual method book that you as the band director want your students to have access to. And what we want to do is we want to know that, we want to prioritize that. We create portals that are one-stop shops for these band directors to service their rentals. We are actually in the process of creating individualized online music stores for these educators as well, filled with these preferences. So instead of maybe having to wait for that road rep to come out to service or to bring the box of reeds once a week, once every 2 weeks, it's immediate. And we can service that again with one click of a button.
Yeah, and I think when I was listening, I was like, wait a minute. So I can actually just contact you on my own time, and
Yes.
we'll connect together. And oddly, you're not in the middle of my rehearsal knocking on the door.
No, not at all. And it's not just me. I work one-on-one with band directors, but there's a whole team of 20, 30 plus people that interface directly with communities, band directors. We can interface with students as well through our customer service portal, but it's not just me. Sweetwater has award-winning customer service, and it's because it takes a village to be able to service all the different components that it takes to really holistically serve a band community.
Yeah. Well, personally speaking, I can tell you, when I order from Sweetwater, I'm just amazed at the follow-up. I think that's one of the, it's at first, the first time I think it happened to me, I don't remember, it was unexpected because I wasn't thinking someone was actually going to follow up on, I think it was just a box of reeds at the time, but they want to make sure I got my product. They wanted to make sure everything was okay. If there's anything, reach out. And I think that's, as we're modernizing this product, I think that's fantastic, and what can a band director, like you said, we talked a little bit about it, but what can a band director expect when they finally meet someone like you? When they go, when they find it, go in the portal, like you said, they can pick instrument types, they can pick, method books and all those things. Is there anything else they can come to expect?
Well, it comes from a place of one-stop shopness. What they can expect is, there's an immediacy when it comes to working with us. We're not in once a week. We're not in twice a week. We are a text. We are an email. We are a phone call away. And that is pretty jarring for band directors because they're so used to having that in-person reaction. But we replace in-person, interactions with an immediacy of service. I'm a text away. There's wonderful, these two orchestra ladies in Huron, South Dakota. Massive orchestral program of 400 or 500 students large. And I'm quite literally just a text away from them for that sense of immediate service. We can have things out the door to them that same day. And, if they get in touch with me before 10 a.m., I can have it out on the pallet that same day. So. Yeah,
well, for me, I'm enamored with the equity. Like the ability to be in rural South Dakota and still get the same service as if I live in a large city, like say Indianapolis, for an example. And that access to that repair, that's what's speaking to me, because as somebody who knows firsthand, that piston is not quite straight. I need this trumpet, just to thinking about the ability to have it just shipped straight to your door. And I think we as a society, and you can agree, disagree with me, we are changing to the fact we have come to expect, oh yes, I will order this in a day or two, it'll be on my doorstep. And that's now become a norm. And I think that's what I'm appreciating about the service is we're taking the what society has to offer and we're making it the advantage to make it equitable for everyone around the country.
And it's important that you brought that up. That is true. I was getting back to my students. They were so active. They were in athletics. They were had so many after school activities. I even had a student, he had to miss drum club. We had to reschedule it on the day that we had it scheduled because he had taekwondo that he was using for his PE credit. So kids after school are so active. And I lived in Dallas where they had a plethora of local options. And just because of the busy schedules that these students had, we had to use online options in order to service our needs as a band program in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. And so we do offer that ability to service and bring that equity into places, not just rural, but also in big city as well. Because, from the comfort of your own home, we get the kids to sleep and I can take care of all of my kids' supplies. It's pretty game changer with how we do that. And, any online major retailer has a great direct to customer service. And, we're just not being honest with ourselves if we think that the music industry is immune to that.
Yes, I agree. And I think, we're just so used to the brick and mortar used to be the one and only way that things were serviced. Sure. And that's not true anymore.
And I do want to preface, local brick and mortar, we do love it. We do support it. They can, on the day of the concert, fix your oboe faster than 2 to 3 business days. Full disclosure. All we're looking for and all we're making appeals to the band and orchestra community is that a great online option is a wonderful tool to service the modern band program. And that's really our message that we're trying to make to band directors.
Well, I appreciate the info. So we got to get to the show here, but got a guest coming up real soon. See you in a minute. Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to Culture Before Content. My name is David Duarte, and I am your host today. And this is amazing. We're at the Sweetwater Director Academy at the Bands of America Summer Camp, presented by Yamaha. And never forget, at Music for All and within the Culture Before Content team, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. All right. Well, the neat thing about this camp, for me, at least, it's all about me, of course, right? No.
Well, yeah.
It's that I get to talk to live people. There's somebody here. I think I keep saying it because I'm still fascinated with it. I'm not looking at my computer doing like the magic Zoom call, so to speak. But we have today with us Miss Courney Allyson Mills, and I'm going to let her give her title because it's a lot. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Courney, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I can tell you've got that podcaster or that broadcaster mindset because it's like, oh yeah, there's a little spark of energy and they know how to handle the mic. So anyway, I'll let you take it away.
I'm usually the person interviewing, so I totally get on the other side of this.
Oh no, we don't have to change that. You can do the whole interview. I'm not going to change up on that.
This is my second year with BOA in this capacity at this camp. This is my second year on the leadership team for the Leadership Weekend, led by Bobby Lambert. And this year, NOLA was great and was like, hey, we need you on the director's track. You have a skill set that's not like anything else. So I've been doing sessions for the director's track as well as some leadership with the color guard students this week as well.
Well, that's a lot to handle. I mean, there's so many people here. I'm meeting so many interesting people and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So there's so many people at the camp. It's like everyone's new every time I go out in the hallway. And I've just had such a wonderful time getting to meet you, getting to meet everyone here. But, I think what we're going to talk about today is we were talking about feedback and how to give that type of feedback. My tracks have been on student-centered learning. And so I'm a big believer that we band directors work way too hard and we've got to give more. We've got to give more to the students because they will do it more authentically. They'll do it better. We need to be more of a guide than a teacher. And so that's where I'm coming from. That's my mindset. Right or wrong, that's who I am. So let's talk about that feedback. So where are you coming from on this subject?
So my major is in performance psychology. And so a lot of the work that I do and a lot of kind of my role in many bands I'm an observer. I watch how all of these band directors run their rehearsals. And I am sometimes up in the tower and sometimes I'm down on the field, but I'm always paying attention to the adults because I want to know where they're at in their brains and if they're actually seeing and understanding how they're giving information that's not emotional or a reaction. And that is the biggest thing I see where the immediate reaction if they take a rep and something is not right or there's a mistake, the immediate reaction is an emotional response. And it's not necessarily, that's not the kid's burden. That's the band director's burden.
That makes me think because I'm always with that assumption that no matter what, right or wrong, everything in band is my fault. Whether it's the reaction of how I talk to the student, how the student talked to me, or why the student did or didn't do something, it's not my it's my fault if it doesn't go right. And if it does go right, the student gets all the rewards.
100%.
And so I'm listening to you thinking, so just FYI, I was a fine arts administrator for 11 years. So going into the classroom, I will say this, and I might have said it before, 9 times out of 10 going in the classroom. And this is why Culture Before Content exists. It is not the content. It was classroom procedures. It was management. It was just, how the kids are, are they learning? And I would watch the kids. I would watch to see, one of the big things for me is I always tell people, listen with your eyes. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things where I will not address my students. I will not address a room until I can see with your eyes, because if you're listening with your eyes, then at least I can get you captured and then I can engage you. And I think that really comes down to is that engagement system.
Absolutely. I think too, when we talk about the engagement and listening with their eyes, I think what we're really asking them is if the roles were reversed and you were sitting here and nobody was looking at you and you were seeing the top of heads and you were like, just people were falling asleep. I want you to imagine yourself in that position. Like, how would that feel as the person that's giving the information and giving them that understanding of maybe having an empathetic idea of how they're working with the adult?
Yeah, well, that was just my question. How do we teach empathy to anyone and everyone? It doesn't necessarily come natural to everyone. And, and that whole thing of putting yourself in the shoes of the people that you're talking to. I mean, and so I love the fact that you have a psychology degree. I'm actually fascinated. Do you have any thoughts on empathy, or is there a way, if you don't have that skill set, are there things that you can do, or things that, even just in practice? Because I've learned if I don't have a maternal instinct when I'm with my kids. So I have to rent it. So I
have the fun aunt instinct, and that's about it.
Yeah, I've got the uncle who makes too many jokes that aren't any good. So
100% me.
But when kids, when I always tell kids, if you need like a hug or something, I'm going to have to. That's why I bring chaperones or people on staff that can do that. And I flat out will tell my kids, I'm sorry, I don't have that skill set. I'm going to be very honest with you, and I will help you the best. You are my concern, but I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses, and I don't want my weakness to become something that affects you, the child.
100%. I think that in terms of being able to teach empathy, you're right. Some people have it naturally, some people don't. But going back to essentially that, I got that certification in teaching social emotional learning. And within those bounds of social emotional learning, my number one is self-awareness. For me, self-awareness, and I use this example a lot, is like using your blinker.
I don't have comments right now.
Because we've all been in that space where we're in the right lane and we're slowing down and we're slowing down and we're slowing down. And there's no one, the car in front of us is not giving us a signal, and they're just allowing us we're being affected by them, right?
Stressfully.
Right. And so I always use that example because we don't have a blinker for us. We have a blinker for other people because we have to recognize our existence affects someone else all the time, all day long, at any given point, whether you know them or not. So you're in the way, you're in their space. Maybe they're having a hard day and you have no idea, but having to expand your mind in terms of recognizing that.
Right.
And saying, if you're that person, are you upset that the person behind you is frustrated, or do you not care? Because that's a big one in terms of self-awareness.
How much do you use with the students to get like a little bit of feedback? Because sometimes I know when my deficits are there, and then sometimes the kids will say, "No, you're doing fine," and I'm like, "Okay, but that's not how I feel, and I want to make sure that you're fine." Or they'll say, "Mr. Duarte, you might want to do some of these things." I'm like, "Okay, I will work on that. Thank you for the feedback." I feel as a teacher, turning into a judgment-free zone and getting feedback from my students, who are the ones I'm taking care of, is so important. Kids are powerful. High school kids are so powerful. They're about to be young adults. They're about to be on their own. They're about to find out that you can't just spend money, because you got to have food. You've got to have, the basic three. And so that social emotional part, I was thinking about, self-advocacy for the kids. And that's one of the things I really want to do, because that's where I start to process my kids from their self-advocacy. Are they advocating for themselves to be the best version that they can be? And when I don't see that, then I go into a mindset of, how can I reach that kid? Or do I need to pair them with another kid and find a way to get them to get, again, I'll say this, and everyone this is where I'm at, this is where kids at, and we're just trying to find where we are and then bring it to where we want it to be.
Most of the kids don't know how to self-advocate. And so it's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't know how to speak to adults because they've never been asked to self-advocate. All day long, students are being taught and they're being talked to, and they're not being encouraged to be a part of that process by asking questions, not just about the content, but about the reasoning and the why and the philosophy and all of those things that should matter in our classrooms that build relationships that go beyond the content, right?
Right.
So they don't know how to advocate because we don't make space for that. We think we make space for it, but we don't make space for that and saying, if you need something, I need for you to tell me. This has to be a two-way it can't just me talking at you.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing, where the adults in their lives just, they don't allow that space.
Yeah, and that's some of the other things too. I was thinking about is we don't know what their life is outside of band. We can pretend we know what they're like and their families are like, but we don't know what they're going through. And I have to remind myself, because every once in a while you'll get that kid that just says, "Thank you. You were literally the only thing that kept me going today." And you're thinking that kid was just not paying attention.
100%.
So I mean, that's kind of like that self-awareness on my standpoint. But I really do tell you, I just like when I see a classroom, when I'm teaching a group, I just feel it's my responsibility, no matter if I'm right or wrong, to own everything in that room and find ways to even make it better for those kids.
Yes. And I would also encourage you to allow them to fail.
Oh, 100%.
Because if like we're seeing specifically with this generation, there's a lack of resilience because their parents are advocating on their behalf and they are not allowing the student to fail and to suffer consequences. And consequence can be good or bad, but it's the byproduct of a decision or a choice. But they have to know what that feels like. And if they don't know what that feels like and how to overcome that, they don't grow into the resilient people that they're supposed to be becoming.
Yeah, I'll give you my example that happened. I just got out of school Tuesday of last week, so I'm still catching up to like where's summer starting?
Yeah,
I haven't got there yet.
Yeah,
but I make my students at the end of the year do chair placements and all of those things. So you speak about letting them fail. Here's the music. Here's the audition. We'll do all the work in the classroom, and that's the first time some kids will fail. So and so is going to be first chair. Well, so and so finished in sixth, and that's what got published. And I think they're learning from that because and also I think the recovery skills where I would like to go next, because I think that's where it is. Once they have that failure, how can we help them with the recovery skill? Not recover for them or own the recovery, but how can we help guide them to make a recovery to keep them in that headspace that is the positive towards what we're doing?
So from a mental perspective, oftentimes when we have a mistake or we don't do something well, we try to start back at where that mistake began rather than looking forward and beginning where we're at and then moving forward. I use this terminology a lot and this imagery in color guard a lot, because when you drop a piece of equipment, your natural instinct is going to want to start exactly where you messed up. But everyone's already bypassed you by like 8 counts by that time. And then you look crazy trying to get all back in because you're like, I have to start here. No, you have to start from the mistake. And rather than go back and try and fix it, you have to move forward with the knowledge you just gained from that mistake and move forward in order to create that recovery skill.
Oof, that's deep. That's really deep. And so are there any like things that you've noticed with both students and adults? Are there any common themes that you see of like that would help, or is there a story where someone, there's some things that you can do? Like, what's the guidance that you've seen, or what are some things that are like typical, like, directors, instructors, if you would just focus on X.
I got you. So, this thought occurred to me probably about 3 years ago. I was at a rehearsal and it was just, band director was upset. Lots of like reaction, emotional. You're late on count 4. You missed the step off. You blah, blah, blah. So all the band director at that point is doing is telling the kid the problem. At no point are they actually helping the kid understand how to fix the problem. And most times we assume they know how to fix it. They don't know how to fix it. So rather than saying you're late on count 4, maybe you start with, can you speed up 2 and 3? So you get to count 4 on time, and reframing that idea rather than stating the obvious is where I've started finding the most success in not only how it is presented, but how it's received, because then it doesn't become a mistake. It becomes a moment where you can see, oh, this is how to fix the issue, rather than expecting them to problem solve in 4 seconds.
Okay, I got my relationship. It just popped in my head. To me, we have too many perfectionists out there, and that is not the way to be. It's perfect intent versus perfectionism. And if you have perfect intent, you can allow yourself to make a mistake and go from it. But if you are a perfectionist and you make a mistake, I always say you're insufferable, because here's how many performances have you done in your life that you haven't made a mistake? And my answer is 0%. and I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm a pretty good musician, but I've never played the perfect. I've either missed one articulation, something like that. But it's not that that's not the perfection, because I'm always on the mindset I'm going to do it perfect. It just might be something else happen. But you're right. Maybe it's because I didn't prepare well enough, or I didn't, I wasn't, my headspace wasn't there, or I forgot to turn the page and I didn't, all of a sudden I had to like, Jimmy, I had to think too fast and I couldn't catch up.
Right. So when I talk about how to give that feedback in terms of like those particular things, right? We deal with that perfectionist specifically in a lot of girls. They have to have everything just in this nice little neat package. They have to know why. They have to know essentially every single detail that is ever been on the face of the earth, because they have to know. I don't know what that is, but
I don't know what that is.
But I think that there's something to be said for being able to give grace and give a sense of understanding and recognizing no one's making a mistake on purpose. We may not be mentally focused because we don't know how to be mentally focused in that moment. A lot of performance psychology is really creating a consistency within repetition, but also putting yourself in the physiological state that you would be in a performance. And that's really hard to do from rep to rep to rep.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that adrenaline and the chemicals that kick in, you're looking at a completely different human that's going onto that performance field than you saw in rehearsal. And that's where we see the timing issues. That's where we see the out of tune, because they're trying so hard to be a performer in that moment, but they didn't do that on Tuesday at rehearsal.
So let's pretend I've decided. Actually, I will tell you one of my stories back in my life is I lost my color guard instructor, I want to say October of a November ending season.
Love that.
I became the color guard instructor because I wasn't about to let it fail. I took lessons. I called a friend and said, all right, run me through everything. And luckily I got him to actually come take over after about a week, because I cannot let things fail. And my absence of resource was not the student's fault. And I didn't want them to suffer. And anyway, the ending result is that the season went just fine, but I had to take some ownership of things that I'm definitely out of I am not a color guard. I mean, I learned more than I ever wanted to learn. It was great though. He came over to my house, gave me instructions. I was learning all these things.
Love
and
that.
I actually got some coordinations, because I'm not coordinated. But with our staffs, if those of us band directors who have a staff, how do we grow in giving them the tools to give effective feedback? Is there any advice you have for because that's what I see is, as a band director, I am completely dependent upon my drum staff. I'm completely dependent upon my guard staff. I'm completely dependent on my visual staff. Music staff, that's on me. I'm yours. You're not getting anywhere on that. That's my caption. But on the rest of it, I am so dependent. But there's another story. I once had a guard instructor tear a kid down in front of the entire band. The kid went to tears, and that was like I had to let that person go. It was that bad in front of, and it's a scarring moment, because it was also a learning moment for me, and it was something that I promised I would never let happen again. Keeping my kids safe didn't matter whether they were right or wrong. We don't do those things. But how do we help give our staff that feedback ability? Is there any resources out there? Is it just working together? What do you say?
Well, I feel like we're at this perfect space here at the BOA summer camp, where there's a director's track where they do offer a lot of those courses. I've done 3 this week. Basically, the first one I did was the art of the mistake, and how to essentially make a mistake a learning experience, and not to punish kids for a mistake, but to actually encourage mistakes.
Well, you've got me thinking, what happens if we actually teamed up with a guard instructor, with a music instructor? Because we're saying the same things. And yeah, it's the content is a little, again, it goes back to, I'm more interested in the culture than I am the content,
100%.
because the content is going to be the content.
100%.
That's what we teach is
but
the
that's
content.
all you learn in college too. At no point in time in any education program that I've heard of are they really focusing on you developing your own voice and how to work in that capacity as a teacher. They're telling you what to expect, and they're telling you the content things, but they're not really teaching you. For student teaching, they just throw you in the classroom and they're like, here you go, figure it out.
Yeah, and like I did my thesis on the student teaching experience and how there's nothing really out there to help them, and it's built on reflective feedback.
100%.
So that's my big thing. I don't own anybody's learning but my own,
Right.
and I'm trying to give them the reflective feedback so that they can own their own learning. But here's my cool question I wrote down: what's the balance between high expectations and emotional safety?
High expectations, emotional safety.
I think that's a good one.
It is a good one. We can have high expectations, but that's just our perspective, and that's just on us.
I would guess that if we were working together, and I said, "Hey, you're in charge," that you already have a pre-programmed version of how it's going to happen, what it's going to do. You are the professional in your field, and I'm trusting you as my hired professional. But you know what I'm saying is that we, as those instructors, you know what it's going to take to get from, it's hard for people to be builders. There's some people that excel at taking a kid from nowhere and getting them somewhere, and then getting them to think. There's other people that they can't do that, but they excel at working with the people who have their stuff down.
Right.
So, that's what I'm thinking, in terms of how do we ensure that what's being taught is the right way for the kids that we have? And do you have a evaluation process for when you start a job, or for or giving directors feedback with their guard?
Well, from a color guard perspective, in a color guard director world, we don't have any sort of, there is no training. There is no certification. There is no education. There is no way you can get a degree in teaching color guard. And so we're already behind the curve on that. So if you want to be an educator, then you go to college to become an educator. But at this point in time, there is no requirement at all.
And I was thinking, because what was always not the bane of my existence, but my deficit was, I can't do percussion, I can't do guard.
Right.
And I need those two things to be successful. Correct. I can handle the rest, but if I don't have those two things, how do I find those people? How do I know I'm finding the right people? And then again, what's my goal? That my band is getting the best experience that they can, giving them with those things. So, and you're right. There's no training. For me, it's always been, what's it always been? Hey, what drum chord did you march with?
Where did you march?
Yeah.
Where did you march?
And I'm still doing this. I'm also in WGI, and I march with so-and-so. Also the most fascinating thing. I love working the winter circuits. And then the other one is, maybe I'm still doing it in college. I was in color guard, but I'm just doing it in college, and then you still have every once in a while the mom that says they did color guard. And that might be for someone in a small town, that might be your only act. There's, I always like to tell people, there's no wrong,
right?
But
I think a lot of that too is dependent upon, because as teachers, we emulate and model the teacher that taught us, because we perceive that as the way it gets done. And some of us take what is being done and we do the exact opposite because it didn't work or it didn't feel good. And a lot of us, like myself, I didn't come to that realization, I think, until 2008. And I'd been already teaching for probably about 10 years at that point. And it came to that point if I got really angry at a rehearsal, and I started at a winter rehearsal, very, very vivid memory. I started banging on the wall because they didn't do something that I asked them to do. And after that rehearsal, I just had this moment of A, why am I getting so angry? And B, I don't think I gave them enough information for them to be successful. And I had to look at myself and how I was taught, and how whenever I was taught, it was a 90s kid, right? And the way we were taught back then was way different, right?
Yes.
And it was very, it was very emotional. It was very reactive. It was very based in fear.
Yes.
And that is where I defaulted to, was this idea of anger. But what anger really truly is hurt. It is the thing that makes us feel sad, but we don't know how to process that. So when I got angry, I had to sit back and say, why am I getting angry at this room full of children?
Okay, let's go going back to the empathy. You got a million questions going in my head. How are you different as a learner versus an instructor? And do you have any resolve to make those things match? I know we all have our own learning style. I know it works for me. And I was telling somebody, I'm an experiential learner. If I can't experience one, I can't take that first time and just throw it out, because I gotta live through it once before second time. But do you find yourself trying to get the kids to learn the way that you expect, the way that they should? Each kid gets a different version, because I know what this skill set is on this kid. What are you like in the difference between how you learn and versus how you teach? So
I think, I was diagnosed neurodivergent late in my life.
Welcome to the club.
I know. And when you look back, so many things make sense. So many things make sense. All of those really gross feelings as a teenager, those just all it's hindsight. You see, and you're like, oh my, that makes so much sense. That's why I'm like this. So as a learner, I was kind of all over the place. I was more interested in feeling what I was doing. It wasn't tactile, but it was like, what's the expression? What's the emotion? How can I create this equipment or movement moment that matches the feeling? And then as a teacher, I gravitate towards the same thing because we all have that in us. We all connect with emotion. And I feel like specifically band directors don't know how to connect the technical and they don't know how to connect the expressive because they're so worried about the technical.
That doesn't matter whether it's jazz, concert band, marching band. It's artistry versus technical skill. Right. They're two different things. And, I will say this, it's kind of like math and English. You can be gifted in one and just a deficit in the other, and it can flip. I'm just saying.
But is it a deficit or is it something that's not right immediately access to you? Because as a man, you've grown up in a certain social and cultural way of how the expression and emotion thing and all of that. But as women, we're very much more emotional, but at the same time, the rehearsals that I go to, which are mainly men, band directors, right, they get so angry, and so, but that's expressive. That is it.
I really honestly feel I could have a whole conversation on this whole band directors versus instructors, and we could go through a whole list of things. But sadly, we have run out of time. Our thing goes way too fast.
I know.
So how about another hand for Courney Allyson Mills? Here, we can put two hands together. I'll be the one that claps. But here we are at the Sweetwater Director Academy at the Bands America Summer Camp presented by Yamaha. I'm David Duarte, your host for Culture Before Content, and I will see you next time.
Hey, welcome to the show. Here we are live on Culture Before Content. We are at the Sweetwater Director Academy at the Bands America Summer Camp presented by Yamaha. And today we have an amazing guest, and his name is Mr. Jose Sanchez. You are from Gatesville ISD in Texas, and you are the Director of Bands and Fine Arts Coordinator. Oh my goodness, that's a big job. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Hey, David, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me more than one.
Who does your hair? Your hair is so wonderful.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, here we go. I'm always search of a good barber. If you're a guy, if you haven't ever had a barber and a shave, it's an amazing experience. Anyway, a new guy, his name's Ferran, See, I'm such a teacher. Precision Haircuts in Vancouver, Washington. So if you're down on Mill Plain, he's right there.
Well, I think that's honestly an important part of like what we do, a presentation of the way you look and how you present yourself to your students. I feel like that is a missing thing from a lot of band directors' toolboxes, because if you don't take yourself seriously in that way and the way you hold yourself and the way you dress, I think it's going to be something that's going to be kind of detrimental to what happens inside the classroom.
It's funny you say that, because I actually, just to tell you a funny story, I don't know why this is coming up, but I accidentally went to a barber who didn't speak any English, and we thought we said trim and he meant shave. So he shaved off my beard, which was fine. And the first thing that happened when I got to my school that day, the first student looked at me and said, no. And that was it. That's when I was like, okay. And then it was just the whole day long was about how Mr. Duarte looked, and he looked different. It was funny, but it just became a topic. And then how the kids like that safe space of being, we know what Mr. Duarte likes, what he looks like, and how we want him to be. And it's funny you say that.
Well, and we did our first Bands of America contest a couple years ago, and fantastic experience, but I decided I was going to change it up, and I got the wild hair, and I shaved off my beard. And as soon as I walked inside the band hall that morning, we call it the band hall in Texas.
I like that.
Okay, so the band hall, because it is, you go to the hall and it's this presence. That's why we call it the band hall. And so I walked into the band hall, and the first thing I hear is a girl scream, and she goes, "What happened to your face?" I'm like, well, unfortunately for me, this is the face I was born with. So I'm going to need you to readjust your concept of me real quick. So, and so it was like a fresh start. And that's what I told the kids. I shaved my face because this is a new beginning to our contest season. And so I wanted to present a fresh, it startled them for a second, but I gave them this idea of this is a fresh start for us. And this is a direction that we're trying to go competitively. And this is my physical representation of that. And they kind of understood that going forward. I mean, when I was in high school, my athletic program drove culture. And
right.
This is something that I have taken into the classroom myself, about on game days, we were not allowed to wear jerseys in school. It was button-up shirt,
Yep.
long sleeves with a tie, tucked in, because like look good, feel good. End of story. And so those are the same things that I take into my band hall consistently. Like a rule that I have is that I don't allow any hats inside my band hall, period. If it's a guest clinician, I have to explain beforehand. Then I've had kids ask me like, why? Why do you do that? I'm like, well, I'm kind of old school in that way because it's a respect factor. I go, this is my
I was
home.
just going to say respect.
Yeah, there's the same reason why some people like kick off their shoes when they walk inside their house. You know, it's a respect thing. That's why, like for me, I appreciate like the Japanese culture in that way because I mean, it's so honed in. It's so just like it is what it is, and they just dedicate themselves, full stop to it, and like. Some of those concepts is the same things that I appreciate in my band hall. Like, please take off your hat. And like, I model that every single day when I walk in through the facility. I'm like, well, I said, there's no sun in here. What you doing? Get that off your head.
Well, it's funny you say that because, I really didn't become quite aware of my appearance as a band director until I started doing this podcast. Because think about Hi World. This is, I'm sitting in front of a camera and, you just feel the judgment. I'm not going to lie. You just kind of feel the judgment. And it did start making hair and like just the way I present myself. And that I kind of carried into the classroom, how I present myself. And I've had to backtrack a little bit and think about why that's important. Not just my presentation of my hair, but my presentation of my attitude, presentation of myself. Because it's funny you say culture, because again, I think we all have our beliefs of what makes our band hall go, because I think that's a huge part of it. And so I was thinking to myself, because I was, looking at, the things that you do, and, just talking about respect makes me feel super happy that's part of that. Because, where are kids going to learn? Where do you feel kids learn all these things from?
Well, like for me, like, unfortunately, with the community we kind of live in, Gatesville is an interesting place because we're part of a military base. Mm-hmm. And then we have the largest women's prison in the state of Texas in our town. So our ecosystem of students is very, very diverse. And then we have people who've been there for 5 generations. And, you can find tombstones of their family going back to like 1825, that kind of situation. And so there's like a huge separation in like cultural norms. Like for example, like I've gotten into this mindset of telling my kids, like, when you walk into the room, you have to know the room got better because you walked into it. And it's that I'm like, don't be cocky. I go, you have to be confident in the idea. And we have to start that in the band hall. And because like for us, we have some kids who respond like very easily to like, hey, do this for me, please. And it's very simple, done. Other kids who like have a single parent household or like have that kind of stuff at home, I have had them come up to me like, Mr. Sanchez, you need to yell at us during marching rehearsal. I'm like, why do I need to yell at you? Well, like, that's just the way it needs to happen. And me and my wife, who's also a band director with me at my district, we had a long discussion about that, is like, what kind of culture is being like happening at home, like how are these students being redirected in their behavior? And it's not conversational, it's not any of that kind of stuff. They're being yelled at, and that's how they're responding. And I've had several conversations with some great mentors and some really great people. And a common thing is that we are having to tell our kids, like, you're the ones who are training the adults. Like, the way you react to what we do is the way we are going to confirm on how we should act, because like that's the way you're receiving information. And so like we're having to cover all our bases, especially in our band hall.
Wow, that's pretty deep. That's a really deep thought, and that got me thinking about that. So, because you're right. Some people respond differently to how behavior is. I've moved all across the country. I've taught in Nashville. I've taught in Phoenix. I've taught in Minneapolis. And now I'm basically in the Portland area. And I have found that each different part of the country responds differently. And the kids, and I've lived up there for 4 years, and I'm still learning how the culture works up there. And it's my belief that the band hall, so I'm still learning that one. It still becomes that place where we provide that consistent place. And maybe those kids need yelled at, but I try to teach them that this is how it operates in this space. And that's, and that we've got to learn that this space. And you're right. We don't need to be yelled at to be right. And we just got to teach more leadership. We got to teach more things, and we got to teach more cultural norms for our hall. Don't you believe that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, and for me, I tell my kids, I go, look, guys, I am too overweight for me to get that upset with you. So like, we are in this renaissance in our band hall about creating intrinsic motivation and giving our students the tools that they need to do that. We had a student leader make a sign for leaving our band hall, and the sign is it says pick which side, and it has a railroad track right down the middle of it. And it came from the idea and the fact that I told the kids, I go, you guys get to pick how, what side of the track you're from. And if you want to be treated like the kids from the other side of the tracks, then you're going to be treated that way. If you want to be treated a certain way, you're going to have to act a certain way. And the culture change after that has been like significant. And, and I told our kids that it had to start in our band hall first and foremost. And we're very fortunate that the kids have bought in. I mean, that's a huge thing, is that if they're not buying in, it's not going to work. But we actually started a motto this year, luckily from the brainchild of Reed Atkinson, who is fantastic, about excellence. And the saying that we're using this year is excellence in everything and everything in excellence. And that made such an impact with our administrators. It is now the operational motto for the high school campus this upcoming year.
So all I hear right now is that you've been using relationships to build your band culture. So, maybe talk about how that relationship, like what do you believe it takes to build that relationship? Because, in order to get to the results of that you want, how long have you been at your current school now?
This is year 9. And when I took over on June 26th. So I was, I started with a 3-director staff. We're up to 5 directors now. Wow. Our budget has increased, and it's all been about, building the relationships. A lot of times I feel that directors forget that they're public servants, not only to the students, but to the administration. I tell my admin all the time, and my superintendent, he sees it as a slogan now. I walk into his office and I talk to him, and I'm very fortunate to have that kind of relationship with him. But every single time I leave, I go, all right, is there anything I can do for you? And that's the last thing I ever say to him. And the answer is generally no, but him knowing that I am offering my services to him and the district allows me to have a lot more, leeway with some of the decisions I'm making. Like before the school year ended, actually before the second semester started, I presented 2 different calendar schedules to him, because I sat down with one of the head athletic coaches, and I said, hey, the schedule this past year isn't working for us. Like, let's sit down and make 2 calendars that would work for your program and my program, and let's present it to the superintendent. And he said, okay. And we did that. And the superintendent said, thank you very much. I'm going to push these out to the school district. And so we're dictating the culture of the campus and the district because we took something off his plate, because we are being servants to him and the district at the same time, which allows us to better serve our student population.
So that makes me laugh, because I was a fine arts coordinator as well. And so, like you said, again, we're talking relationships. So I believe in the relationships we have with the children, relationships we have with the adults, the parents and the guardians, or we have relationships with our own faculty and our own admin. And then now you have this faculty, or, with the district admin. How have you balanced those different relationships? And, what do you feel attributes your success in creating those relationships?
Well, being present and being seen. That's step one. It is a kind of a requirement for our staff to be at least one athletic event at the junior high campuses. So like we go to a basketball game, we go to a volleyball game, and we don't take a band. Right. We're just there. And so we go to the JV football games. We go if there's a 7th, 8th grade football game, we go. We also do performances inside the community. So like just earlier this month, we played at Vendor Days, which is like a farmer's market. Mm-hmm. And we took about 30 kids and we just played, and there weren't a lot of people there, but they were happy that the band was present, and we were bringing more people in, and people enjoyed the performance. And so therefore we're gaining support from the community. And when we gain that support within the community, well, eventually their kids go like, oh, I want to be a part of that. So we do those types of things. And something that's kind of helped our culture, with junior high to high school, because we actually share one band hall with our 7th and 8th grade and then high school, and our kids walk across the street. And so we don't have a campus on the junior high, which is like really weird as far as culture, because like our junior high kids don't have a home. There's nowhere for them to feel really safe going after school. And so we started doing side-by-side concerts, or like concerts for each other that is during the school day. So we get to do the fun thing and take them out of school, which is like, I mean, who doesn't like getting out and taken out of school? Like, that was my favorite thing in high school and junior high. Is like, we're going on a trip, let's go on a trip. And so we're doing those kind of performances, having them interact and talk, and we put them in their sections. And that's just helped build us from the bottom up. And I mean, that's been the great part of the program, is just like, we're investing in our younger kids. So therefore they're trying to invest in the older kids.
That's fantastic. I was just thinking to myself as we're talking about these relationships, let's talk to the band directors out there that are listening. What is one piece of advice that you have, and everything we've talked about, whether it's relationships, whether it's, just that culture in your band hall, see, I'm going to keep going with this. But what advice do you have a band director there about building relationships?
You have to be a servant first. I mean, the same way we want to serve our kids. I mean, I at the beginning of every single year, every single secretary, every single counselor, and every administrator gets a band t-shirt.
That's amazing. I have a secret one for mine. I take my secretaries every year, and I tell them to pick a date, and I bring breakfast burritos for all of them. Yeah, and that they can even have the guacamole. It's so good. But I'm just saying, I try to take care of my campus. I have a relationship with my custodial crew. I have a relationship with my admin. I have a relationship with my secretaries, because I don't believe anybody works for me, and I don't believe I work for anybody. We are a team, and I think that maybe is the bigger aspect here. We're creating teams. We're creating adult teams, kid teams, community teams. It's funny you say about that. My band, we played at this event over at the historical land of the city, and there's maybe about 100 people out there. But what I believe in is, anytime I speak out to members of my community, there's always a positive to speak back. And then and the big thing for me is, we have bonds and levies out there that we're that's what's supporting our schools. I talk to my I also have a nice relationship that I can speak to my superintendent about thinking about putting instruments on those levies and bonds to offset some of those costs that we have, because that's one of the things that I did when I was fine arts coordinator, is we put all of the capital onto the bonds, and we were able to buy $1 million worth of equipment for the entire district. And that's how we got things done. But it was building those relationships. And we actually did that through our booster organizations. We had the booster organizations, educated them. We then got the booster organization to go to a board meeting, and then we got us to that superintendent. But it took that community building and that relationship so that we could do the things that serve us. Because again, we need that relationship of, hey, we need equipment and you need a great band, and we can't really do one without the other. And we'll gladly do anything you want, but we would really love to have some equipment, because then we can show it off. We can show the world that we got those kinds of things. So I just think that's amazing.
Well, I mean, what is our job as band directors, really?
We are there to if you turn to, I say it's a philosophical question, because I really believe we're there to make lifelong learners of music, period.
I mean, and the other part of that, I mean, it's in our title, music educator. We're there to educate. Well, who are we supposed to educate? Everyone. That's the thing, is that we sometimes forget that we have to educate upwards as well as downwards into our students. And I think when band directors and people, and I've been guilty of this. I've been guilty of like, well, they just have it out for us, or they just don't like me. No, they might not like you because of the decisions that you've made along the way. But like I told my superintendent a long time ago, like, hey, our students, let me put it in an equivalent way. This is me educating them. I go, when our students go to a band contest, like we pushed on to a contest a couple of years ago, and the wheel for one of our xylophones just fell off. Like mid push, like we're about to perform. We had a fantastic band dad who crawled underneath the xylo and held up the xylo for the whole entire show. And he did it again for finals. Like that's just the way it operated. And I told my boss and my colleague, I go, look, it's the equivalent if the football team was getting off the buses in leather helmets and the other team was wearing state-of-the-art helmets. I go, who do you think is going to be more successful after the first two plays?
Right.
And so like that was something he understood. And so we had a Vader go through. So they added 3 pennies to the taxes and they voted on it. And he allotted the band program an extra $185,000 just for instrument purchases. And so we bought a whole entire new front ensemble, new marching brass, and then I outfitted a whole bunch of beginner stuff. And that helped our program immensely. But having those conversations early on and not being pushy and like giving like the data behind it to like prove like, hey, this is what it's going to cost, and providing a plan versus going, hey, this is what I need.
I think that comes back to my belief of solutions-based everything. Never come to somebody with a problem. Come to them with what you're talking about and come with a solution, because it allows them to process it better, I think.
Well, not only that, but whose problem is it really?
I think in mine.
It's my problem. It's not his problem.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, man, I need to lose some weight, and I can tell you that until I'm blue in the face. But is it your problem?
No, it is not.
No, that's my problem. Mr. Sanchez said you need to take down a few pounds. All right. You want to get on the Hogwarts Express or, Hagrid's thrill ride. We're going to have to cut down a few pounds.
Oh my goodness. I don't think so. All right. Let's talk a little band nerd. So let's talk a bit about your program. Tell us about what you got going on.
Our program has seen a significant amount of growth in the past few years as far as a competitive edge. We had a whole entire discussion within the band staff going like, what defines success and what defines competitive? And the Gatesville band program has been successful. We've had 10 years of sweepstakes and like ones, and our kids, do well in so an ensemble region, all that kind of stuff. But we had never really pushed into the upper echelon of competitive marching band or honor band or any of those types of things. So our state level competitions, and we started having the conversation as a staff going like, what do we need to do differently in order to give our students the best opportunity to succeed as a competitive group? And how are we going to continue to make that a healthy competitive group? Because you can be competitive and be unhealthy. And that's something like me personally, I struggled with last year, just because I didn't feel like I was being a good teacher. Mm-hmm. And, I've had some really, really great mentors along the way that kind of say like, no, you're doing a fantastic job. And the proof's in the pudding, You know where that saying comes from?
I do not.
It's the only way you know how good pudding is to eat the pudding.
Yeah. I like pudding.
So I love
pudding.
Pudding
is good.
I'm a tapioca kind of guy.
Oh no, I'm not tapioca. No.
So, but we made that decision, and that happened about 3 or 4 years ago, and we made the first state marching contest appearance in almost 20 years. They've only had made it twice before, one in 2004 and one in 2008. And they were like almost dead last both times. And so, we made a decision, and in the marching arts, we finished 18th our first time around. So not dead last.
Right.
And then, now, I guess 2 years ago, we finished 12th at state marching contest. And then this past year, for the first time in school history, we finished 8th.
Wow. That's what I always tell my kids, as long as we're not finishing 11th in a 10 person race, we're doing okay. And so like competition, it's funny. I could have this conversation for a long time about what competition offers. I believe in competition. I also don't believe in competition. I don't think I'm saying it the right way, but there is a healthy version of competition and an unhealthy version of competition. And you have to have the healthy competition. Why do we have chair placements? Why do we have solo and ensemble? Why do we have festival? Why do we have, it doesn't matter what it is. And so that's part of what makes us, I don't know if it makes us better, but it teaches us to prioritize, put our leadership teams together. Because I know that for a fact that if we just, told the kids to learn some music and we all went off and played and came back and didn't care, they wouldn't have an interest in getting better. But, when you go hear a band or when you go to a festival, and here's my thing. I took my kids, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. We don't have marching band. I know. But we have pep band. And so my pep band went and played at a marching band festival. We went and played the Star Spangled Banner. And so I took my kids to this festival this year, and they will not leave me alone. When are we starting a marching band, Mr. Duarte? When are we starting a marching band? And I'm like, okay, kids. No, okay. And so, but my point is, when you take kids out, this is that competitive thing. When you take kids out there to see what's going and they see success, they want to bring it into who they are and bring it into their part of their culture.
And what they don't know is what they don't know.
Right.
Like we started doing the BOA Austin, contest because we said we need to show our kids what other groups are sounding like. They're the same kids. They're the same age. They might just have a few more resources, but you're the same. You're built the same. That's the thing. And so our first contest that we went out for BOA, we're stuck between in warm up Rouse High School and Vandergrift High School.
Vandergrift's all right. I'm just saying. So's Rouse. They're okay.
And here we are, our little four. These are 5A and 6A powerhouses in Texas. I mean, and they're winning state championships or getting pretty close. And here's our 4A, 100-piece band, and they're like 185 to 200 plus, and like our kids are playing. And they're like, tune, guys, tune. I can't hear myself, Mr. Sanchez. But like for them to see and hear like what music and the marching arts at that level can be and what they're capable of was something that they kept on talking about like after that. And so now they expect us to go to that contest, and they look forward to seeing Vandergrift. They look forward to seeing Cedar Park, Rouse, and they're like, we want to see those groups.
Well, we have to get kids to aspire to something, don't you think? I mean, that's what it's, to me, that's what it's about. You think about it, how many different bands do we put on at our schools? It could be different. It could be pep band, could be jazz band, could be marching band, could be contra band, could be contra band B, could be, it doesn't matter, but we're all trying to inspire our teachers, our students.
Some of the teachers too.
Yeah, well, that's just it. You talk about community. I believe playing for the school as often as we can. And getting it out there, because I just want speak to be positive. But getting the kids to going back to the aspiration thing, I think that's what part of the success is. If kids don't know what's out there, they're gonna set their sights on whatever they think their version of it is. And I think that's our job as teachers to keep providing them with those things that are out there so they can see. Because maybe you're an all-state player, I'm an all-state player, but that doesn't help our kids any, right? They have to know what it took for us to get there, and it goes to the whole thing of building a program. It takes practice, it takes culture, it takes planning, it takes goal setting, it takes leadership, it takes all those things.
Well, and this is something I've started with my sixth graders primarily now, is that I ask them, I go, should I have a higher expectation of you than what you have for yourself? And automatically they said yes. I go, no. What should happen is that you should have a higher expectation. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back and I'm going to make another expectation of you. And you got to say, I'm going to show you, Mr. Sanchez, and you beat my expectation. And I'll be like, all right, so what? Boom. I go, why do we do that? Why do I do that? And they go, well, because you want us to be the best version of ourselves. I go, yeah. And this comes back to like, a story and an idea that my dad taught me. My dad was an old school, Hispanic farmer. I'm one of 13 children. Okay. So, we took care of each other. My brother did something dumb. I got in trouble. That's just the way it operated. And so, he taught me when I was real young. He goes, Jose, I want you to understand something. And I go, yes, sir. He goes, your last name is not your last name. And I'm like, I'm mortified. I'm like, you're breaking the news to me now? And he goes, no, I want you to understand something. Your last name is not your last name. Your last name is my last name. And everything that you do is a representation of my last name. The way you hold yourself, the way you talk to people, the way you interact with people, that is a representation of me and my home. And so when you turn 18 and you leave my house, it's your last name now. What you do with it is up to you. But until you leave this house, it's mine. And that's the same thing I tell my kids. I go, the Gatesville, the G that you wear, that is my symbol. That is our school district symbol. And you are a steward of our campus, and you are a steward of this program. Because if you do something that you're not supposed to do, guess who they're going to come to? They're going to come to me. I go, and when you take ownership that you are part of something bigger than yourself, then you're going to really start figuring out what life is because I want you to leave this band hall and realize that I need you to be a functional member of society.
Well, believe it or not, we've gone for a few minutes here at this lovely mini versions of our Culture Before Content. But before we finish up today, I always like to ask the same question of everyone, which is, what does culture mean to you?
I mean, it's everyone's being. Like, what your culture should be. I mean, it's about your character. It's about the vibe you get off. I mean, it should just be like your essence. And that's what I feel like, is that like my culture is the essence I give off. And like, I tell my kids, like, my culture is very much, you see is what you get. And you're never going to find me any different than that, which to my credit and to my my downfall. But what you see is what you get when it comes to Jose Sanchez, me.
Well, you are an amazing, energetic person. I thank you for being on the show today. The difference from today, though, is, oh my God, you're still here. I can't just put you down. But I'm just saying, it's so nice to have somebody. It's nice to actually have a physical person in the room to actually have a conversation with, instead of staring at my computer.
For me, luckily, you're pretty nice to look at.
Oh, you're too sweet. All right. Well, thank you. And like I said, here we are at the Sweetwater Director Academy at the Bands of America Summer Camp presented by Yamaha. And I want to thank everyone for listening today. I'm, as always, David Duarte, your host, Culture Before Content. And I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.